Hi guys, it's Hit from Bindaas Bollywood. We have a super special guest today, Jayta Jayta, an amazing psychologist. Is joining us actually from Sydney. So I know I said this to you off screen. So thank you so much for making the time on a weekend, especially with family commitments and Sydney's finally restrictions lifted. So it's very grateful that you made the time. So
Oh, no
thank you.
problem. Thank you for having me. Thanks for inviting me on.
No, I'm actually super excited to actually just pick your brain and just chat with you in general, because I love just talking about psychology and mental health and just every aspect of it. I think, and also our audience as well, I think they've been really looking forward to this. I've mentioned to a couple of people that that I'll be interviewing you, and then they actually said that really excited. So thank you for tuning in, for those of you that are watching and listening. But tell our audience, like, how did you get started, like, in the mental health industry? Were you always inspired to, or was there something significant that inspired you to do so?
So actually, I grew up in the States. So I was born and raised in the U.S. And my parents, being being a family of immigrants, we were taught the traditional route. So when I told my family I was interested in psychology, they were like, "What? No, that's not that's not a career." So I went the traditional route at first, and I was actually working in finance. And it wasn't until I was like, "This is not like I'm forcing myself to be someone who I'm not." And, I was already at that point financially independent, and I was already living in New York, and I just applied to grad schools. And again, I told my parents, like, I want to become a psychologist. And they're like, well, we don't understand. Then I got into Columbia, and they were like, okay, fine. I guess you can handle it yourself. So they were fine with it once I got into a good school. And then they were really supportive. But I think I've always had an interest in it. I just really love trying to understand people, the different way people work, and like the different way people communicate. And I think so much of that has to do with psychology, and just people's stories are really fascinating, and what makes a person the way they are. And so I started working in finance, and then I did a career change back in, gosh, a really long time. I don't even want to say, because I don't want to mention how old I am, but like back in 2006 or something. um, and so I've been practicing in counseling ever since. And so I still practice through New York City, and I just Skype and Zoom with all my clients out there. But we moved to Australia about 7 years ago. And I actually really lean on our culture for a lot of natural healing methods. So after I finished getting my master's in psych, I also did excuse me, I can't speak today. I specialize in CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And I also got further training in mindfulness, and then yoga for mood management. So how to do yoga in terms of like body work, and how, because sometimes people are stuck within their counseling sessions. And if we go into yoga, they might get into a pose and they can start speaking again. Or vice versa. If we've had a really tumultuous session, we could do yoga and reset the clock, and then they can go back to their workday. Yeah. So, it's really helpful in various different ways. And then I've also studied nutrition, because food and mood are so connected as well. So there's just been a lot of like different augmented education that I've been doing to try to create a holistic practice.
No, that sounds so amazing. And I think you're 100% right. I think people don't actually realize enough about what you put into your body and how it affects your emotions and your stability, and how your hormones can affect how you feel on a day-to-day basis, or even an hour-to-hour basis. It's just, it's so vital.
It absolutely, it's not just what we eat, but it's our lifestyle and everything, even our support system and what we surround ourselves with. Yeah. Everything goes into wellness. And I think that our community, our South Asian community, already has the very holistic lens about this, especially having roots in Ayurveda. And, East Asian, of course, has like roots in this with the Chinese medicine and all this type of stuff. And only Western medicine is now just beginning to catch on to the fact that we need to look at wellness as a complete system, and not isolate like just physical health or lung or whatever, heart health, and actually look at all of the systems connected.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And you said it so beautifully. I actually wanted to ask you, because you mentioned the South Asian community as well. I mean, coming from a South Asian background, I'm Sri Lankan. My husband's Indian. So we both come from certain cultural traditions, even though we've grown up here. And
Yeah.
I've always found there's always so much stigma around mental health in general, globally, but in our culture, there's so much. And I think we're chipping away slowly by speaking more honestly and having more people of South Asian heritage working in mental health as well, like yourself. Like, so hats off to people like you. But I was actually going to ask you, like, what do you think would be like good ways to push those barriers and also like get people to be more aware, and also just especially for the younger generation to kind of outgrow that, the older generation. I mean, they come with great values, but also it just causes such a big stigma.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to progress with the times, right? As technology progresses, we have to keep up. And so does our culture. And I think we're seeing a shift at the moment, but this is something that's so passionate to me because it really is swept under the rug in our culture. And it's definitely something that's been grouped with shame and guilt if you do admit to having a struggle with mental illness or any mental health issue. Like, it doesn't even have to be an illness, but like a low level depression or anxiety can really benefit from getting help. And we're always taught to hide it or to brush it under the rug. And so I just kind of want to baseline and just talk about simple statistics. So it was actually really hard. When I was preparing for our talk, I did want to just do some research and get some stats on the South Asian community and our, prevalence of mental health issues. And it's so underreported that I couldn't even find anything Australian specific. I did find some data which is American specific, which I can share with you guys. But so let me just talk about it as a broader whole of Australians in general. 45% of Australians within their lifetime will suffer from some mental illness. That doesn't exclude us as South Asians. So even though we might be living in this country, we don't get a pass from that statistic. And it's said that 1 in 5 within 1 year one out of 5 people will experience depression and anxiety, which is a pretty big statistic. And especially with what's going on in the world right now with COVID, anxiety is on the rise. And also agoraphobia is on the rise, and we're already seeing it in the US. And agoraphobia, for those who don't know, is a fear of leaving the house because people are getting really scared that they might contract a disease, right? So there's a lot of different things that are happening within our communities right now that unless we talk about and unless we normalize, people think, it's a sign of weakness. But I mean, I personally think it's a sign of strength if we're able to verbalize and acknowledge what's going on with us. That shows that we have insight. We're completely in tune with what's going on within ourselves, and we're not afraid to ask for help. It's empowering. That's, of course, my own personal opinion. So when you ask on how to destigmatize it, I can only say that the more and more that people normalize it, the more and more people admit it, and the more and more people seek help, the more normal it will be. And our struggles as immigrants or as for second generation is so different because we're growing up in a bicultural society, right? So although we're growing up in Australia or America or wherever you are at the moment, we have our Indian or Sri Lankan or South Asian cultures and values that we are impressed upon us to hold dear to us, right? So how do we grapple with the two, which are often at war with each other or often like different from each other, and it's really hard. And I think then another thing that we struggle with as sometimes as second generation is we saw what our family did to sacrifice to come here, and therefore we have guilt and shame because we might have issues with our own mental health, and it feels like we're weak in order to go and seek help for that when our parents literally came here with nothing, left their family behind, and did all the stuff to to provide for us. So there's so much that I just talked about. I kind of went all over the place. There's just so many different avenues and angles for us to seek help. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But again, you're speaking to someone within the industry. I actually want to speak to you about this. So how are you finding it? Are you connected with a lot of South Asians in Melbourne?
I am. Look, I am, as in most of my life, I have been. When I was growing up, when we first moved here, um, we didn't live in a very multicultural neighborhood. So my sister and I were literally the only brown people at school. So
Oh,
we went
wow.
through a lot of racism and a lot of, just the identity culture and just coming to grips with everything,
And that's
having the
hard.
pressures, yeah, having the pressures of the cultural expectations versus growing up here and seeing all the other children doing XYZ, and just all the issues that come with that. But I think growing up, further, like since I was a teen, I was always surrounded by South Asian heritage individuals, and it's great. But at the same time, I do see a lot of people struggling with their
Yeah.
identity and just in terms of mental health. You said it perfectly. There is a lot of guilt and shame that's
Mhm.
attached to speaking up because there's always that someone in your family or extended family or circle of family friends that will say, oh, but people in India are suffering so much, why are you complaining? There's always those very cliche and stereotypical views, which I mean, I think people don't know any better either because they've grown up a certain way in a certain generation in a certain culture, and it's a two-way street.
Absolutely.
It always is. And I think, I mean, I struggle with anxiety. I'm pretty sure I've had it longer than um, when I was diagnosed, which was only a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. I have generalized anxiety, and it's very mild, but at the same time, it took me a while to come to grips with it because of the stigma itself. Because now more and more people are talking about it. I openly speak about it. That way, it makes others feel comfortable. So it either makes people feel very comfortable or uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and they
I
just run.
think it's awesome that you're owning it. I think that that's so wonderful.
It's always, I think everyone deals with mental health issues, as you said, again, with the statistics, like everyone faces it sometime in their life. And I
Yeah.
think it's just really a matter of a collective amount of people from different backgrounds, different experiences, different qualifications, just coming together and saying, it's okay to speak about it because there's so much support. We're very fortunate to live in Australia where there is a lot of support and
For sure.
access is very easy as well. So
Yeah.
I think
That's
it's the
that's
thing.
so true. I mean, and the other thing is we can actually really lean on our culture for support. For anyone who's listening out there who does have kind of a struggle with coming to grips with the fact that they might be dealing with something, and I struggle to use the word illness
Yeah.
because sometimes it could just be like a mild form of anxiety as you're dealing with, or a mild form of depression, or I think I hear the word in our culture a lot, tension.
Mm.
So a lot of people are really happy to use that word instead of stress or anxiety. So there's a lot of tension, which if we just talk about it from a kind of a scientific lens, I'm personally very excited about the new research that's been coming out. And the way where I practice is kind of in the intersection between your gut health, mental health, and neuroscience. So I really love utilizing neuroplasticity for reducing anxiety. And we can talk about that later. But I kind of want to share with you guys some of the science behind it because the more and more we're learning about our gut microbiome, we've realized that a lot of our hormones and the neurotransmitters are created in our gut affect our mental health.
Mm.
And that's really huge because we're also seeing that when our gut is not healthy, that causes inflammation in the body. And inflammation is a precursor to not only degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Hashimoto's or all, different types of various diseases like that, but it's also a precursor to mental health. And new studies are showing that the two can affect each other. So if you're struggling with mental health, you might have inflammation happen. But if you already have inflammation in your body, which us South Asians are very happy to talk about that, like we can talk about the pain, we can talk about our inflammation, but that actually also brings on mental health issues. So you're going to be struggling with depression and anxiety, not like 100%. I'm not saying it's 100% hit rate, but the prevalence is higher. So it's a biological response to what's happening within our own bodies. So if we're able to actually accept physical illness and we're okay to talk about that, we should be able to talk about the mental illness as well because it's a side effect.
100%. Yeah, I
Does that make
completely,
sense?
of course, it makes perfect sense. And it's like, I completely believe in, just what you put into your body and how it affects your gut and hormones. And it's such a chain reaction. And I think um, just people aren't educated enough about it. I mean, I'm so glad the research has actually come up, but I think definitely needs to be spoken about more. That way, the level of awareness rises as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think, yeah, I really hope, I would love to do a part two with you sometime. I'm sure we could talk for hours and hours on just, certain topics. And I think, yeah, it'll be very informative, especially because majority of our audience is South Asian, students, performers, and also parents of students, and also just a lot of other different cultures in general. So I think it's really great. I think, and also, I mean, for example, like I know my parents' generation, they're used to eating certain foods, and they think, oh, it's okay, it's vegetables, but blah 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 blah. It's that they don't really, you know. I've tried to explain to them, you have to cook it in a certain way, and there's otherwise you can't just have it dripping in oil or fry it all the time. It's not it's not great for your gut health. And I mean, people look at me as if I'm off with the fairies sometimes, because I do get talking about gut health, and they just say
Yeah.
to me, "Oh, you're from Brunswick." I mean, Brunswick's a very hipster kind of town in Melbourne, so yeah, everyone's a vegan, so, etc. And
Everyone's having their
yeah,
acai bowls in the morning.
yeah, that's it. So it's but yeah, look, I mean, it's not like I think it's just people do really need to do their own research as well, when it comes to the link between the what you eat and mental health as well.
Absolutely. I mean, and there are so many avenues to treatment for those who are struggling to gain some treatment. Of course, I'm an advocate for therapy because I think that the therapeutic alliance that you build with your practitioner is like the number one statistic for how effective therapy is, because you work collaboratively, you set goals together, you check in, and you work together to do that. The other great thing, especially for our community, about therapy is that it's a confidential environment where you can share your troubles or concerns or issues or whatever is going on in your life without fear of judgment, because that is something that our community does really well. I mean, we're supportive, but we're also pretty judgmental,
Yes.
you know. So it's a non-judgmental, completely confidential environment, and you can also navigate your bicultural identity. So the differing values and different expectations that the two societies impart upon us, and you know, we also have, and this might be getting like you said, this might be a little off with the fairies, but we also have intergenerational trauma that gets passed down. So our ancestors' flight was really hard, and then that gets passed down to us, and that guilt is in our parents, and then our parents pass that guilt to us. I'm sure we all have similar stories where we heard how hard our grandfather worked to educate our parents, and then how hard our parents worked to educate us, and all that translates into, it has an effect on us. And so you're able to communicate with that, and deal with all of these issues in a safe environment. And it also helps people manage communication. So I think one of the things that I definitely struggled with as a second generation in America was talking to my parents about certain things. So I remember my parents were pretty strict and pretty old school. So when I had to do a homework assignment with a boy, they were like, "What do you mean a boy's calling for you?" Like, that was
Yeah.
so bad, right? And like, it would have been helpful to have the skills to navigate how to talk to my parents about this. Like, this is normal within the community here. There's nothing like, this is not romantic, it's just educational. Like, and some families do have that type of struggle, and so really just providing a base of education through mental health is so important. um
Definitely. Look, I think it's just mental health, just in general. I wish, honestly, if I could make one law for society, it would be that it is mandatory for everyone to check in with a therapist at least every couple of months. And I wish we could live in that kind of society where it is mandatory, because I really do think that it isn't necessary for everyone's well-being. And some people, I've come across some people who have viewed going to see a psychologist or a counselor as being indulgent, and I'm like, no, it's really just about self-care. It's about being
It
balanced. It's about looking after your own well-being, so you're not out there inflicting your own wounds on other human beings either,
is.
directly or indirectly.
Yeah. And like you said in the very beginning, it's so accessible for us. So anyone who has Medicare, who is an Aussie, you have a certain amount of free sessions, I think, that you're allotted per
Yes.
year.
Yeah.
And it really is about self-care, like you said. It's taking care of yourself and making sure that you are strong and insightful to carry on with your future endeavors. It's the same way that we go and get, retraining for our career, or we get further education for our career because we think that that's going to make us more successful. It's on the same path. This is just going to help us. It's something for you. But in speaking to that, I think that it's also really important to understand that because we are coming from two cultures, and because we do have our South Asian heritage, finding a practitioner that is well versed in our family systems of our family view, and like the way that you can work with an individual to know that there is like a cultural difference, and to be sensitive to that is really important, because that makes you feel more understood and more heard.
I actually had a completely random question for you. Just regarding what you just said. If you're practicing, like, would you mind? Because I mean, once this, whoever's watching this, your link and details will be below. Like, I mean, if people want to get in touch with you for sessions, and they go through their GP, etc., the normal process, like, would that be something you're offering?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've only been practicing in New York, I'm in the middle of I've been here 7 years, and I'm finally like, I should really start looking into practicing in Australia. So I have two things that I do here in Australia. So I do lectures around like different retreats and spas and wellness centers, because it's like what I talk about is so specific with the intersection of gut health, mental health, and neuroscience. But the other thing that I have is I have a functional foods company, because there's so many foods that also help with mental health, but that's not really relevant to this conversation. I just started as a fun project a new Instagram account, which I think that's how you and I connected.
Yeah.
It's called FN, which stands for functional _ finding balance. And so if anyone wants to reach out to me, feel free to send me a message on there. And I try to give out information weekly on like actual science on what helps people with anxiety or depression specifically, and different eating disorders that might come up. And I often really lean on yogic breathing and different yoga series, as well as like just neuroplasticity skills for how to deal with anxiety. So teaching people how to do anxiety logs and stuff like that, just to gather insight. And so I should be able to start practicing here soon, but I can't really comment on that yet, because I'm just beginning to look into
of course.
science. I mean, the legalities of that. So I think at the moment I can do cash back for private health insurance, but not Medicare, from my understanding, because I've been trained overseas.
Sorry, another random question. So, because you said you still see some of your clients that you had in New York or have in New York. So is that why, like, how does it work for you with the time difference? Because aren't they, it must be crazy.
No, it's perfect, because everybody really wants to see you after work. And their evening is our morning / lunch. So it's perfect. Like the kids go to school, I have my sessions, pick up the kids, and I'm done. So it actually works really well.
No, that sounds great. I was just wondering, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, you have so much on your plate in terms of the family as well. And but no, that sounds like great timing.
But all of us do. We're all modern women, like juggling. I think everybody is now, right? Like we've got a couple of careers, not just one. Like, and
I know. I think I used to have a couple of careers at one time. So I think I worked as a therapist with autistic children. And on the side, I was doing dancing, teaching, and also on the side of that, I was working in disability. And also, there was a time when I had 4 jobs. I worked in pathology as well. So there was a time of my life where it was just like I'll go from one job, like do one session in the morning and then go to do a shift at disability, then go and do something else and then go and teach in the evening. So it was just, yeah. But that was
Yeah.
single life. So it
Wow.
was
That
much
sounds like a
easier.
lot. But in your experience with working with autistic children, you probably would have seen that the diet, because now they're really promoting an anti-inflammatory diet for autistic children as a means for,
Definitely.
getting a handle of the symptoms.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think diet's always been a priority. Even, I mean, the last time I worked as a therapist was 2010, so a good 10 years. But yeah, even back then, diet was always just a priority because I think everyone realized just how vital it is, and in terms of how it affects your behavior as well. It just, like, it's so underrated. I really, really think that there just needs to be so much more media and education around it. Just fingers crossed we're all moving in the right direction. Yeah.
I think there definitely is more of an appetite for it now, which is great. I think people are wanting to have the conversation and wanting to get, or like just hear about the information now, which is great.
No, that's really good. But I was actually going to ask you, how's your COVID been? Like, your COVID experiences. Melbourne's not doing that great, but
I
we're
know.
all hanging in there.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel really bad saying this, but I've had a great COVID experience so far because we just got really great quality family time. But of course, Melbourne's having their second round lockdown, so it must be really hard. And I know so many people in America are really struggling right now as well, or around the world even. So there's like a lot of things that I definitely recommend for people to try and get themselves through the situation. And one of them is if you are isolating with your family, we all love our family. That's beautiful and wonderful. But being with each other in like, close proximity for all day, every day, definitely will take its toll. And so just acknowledging that this is a really hard time and that we've never gone through anything like this before. We've never had a pandemic during our lifetime. And so just taking the time to acknowledge like that this is hard and hearing your feelings and being okay with that is really important, but also lowering your expectations from your family members. So, with my kids, we have rules in place. And if we're together 24/7, I'm just going to have to like lower my expectations of how much they can abide by those rules. And same with partners, like we're expecting certain things out of each other. And at the moment, there's so much on all of our plates and we're stuck together 24/7. So just really like letting go of some of those expectations is okay for now. And it doesn't mean it won't come back, but for now, it's okay. But vice versa for those who are isolating by themselves, that's really lonely. And that must be really hard. So also acknowledging that, but then making that concerted effort to surround yourself with your loved ones through video conferencing and like planning those video dates and planning, that time to connect with people really does make a difference. So have that happy hour, the COVID happy hour that's been going around. Do what you can to feel like you're not by yourself. The other thing is like I really recommend trying to have a schedule. So planning like, okay, these 2 hours I'm going to work. I'm going to go take an hour break and go outside for a mini walk using all COVID safety precautions or doing what you can. Because really, like, I can't say enough about exercise. From a mental health perspective, it works better than antidepressants. It works better than medication. If you can exercise 20 minutes a day and you're perfect, like going to one of your classes is like the best thing that someone could do. It's fun. You find community and like, you're moving, and that's really great for your mental health. And then trying to do just stuff that normally reduces anxiety. So if you can, there's a technique I love to share with people, and it's called GLAD. So it's an acronym, and the G stands for gratitude. So what's one thing you're grateful for that day? What's one thing you learned? So that's what the L is for. What's one thing you achieved? And then D is what delighted you today. So if you can just do that daily, you're glad, that really kind of helps take the edge off, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I've been saying that to my husband over the last couple of months as well. Like before you go to bed, just you have to try to think of things that you were grateful for, like what good happened in the day.
Yeah.
Just keep doing that because there'll be different things every day. Even if it's minute, like, okay, I was able to make the bed, just very, very small goals or daily tasks can make such a big difference. And you have to give yourself a pat on the back for the small tasks. I think, as you said, we've never been in this situation before. And most likely we'll probably in our lifetime won't have another pandemic. So it is really about finding the silver lining of each day. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but just as an individual, just as a psychologist, as a woman, as a mother, like everything, like what's self-care for you? Like, how do you define self-care for yourself?
I
Because a
I
lot
know
of
myself.
psychologists are good at giving advice, but not taking it.
Oh, 100%. Same with doctors, right? Like doctors can help people, but then they're like they don't take their own advice ever. Yeah, my self-care really revolves around, I really enjoy, I'm such a people person. I love being around people, and I absolutely get vitality off of people. So like I get energized when I'm having those social interactions. But really, like aside from that, taking my time to just veg. So like I have that piece of me, but on
Yeah,
the other side, I just need an hour where
yeah,
there's nothing I need to do. And
yeah,
I feel really comfortable with that. And the minute that I know that my day doesn't allow for that, that's when I'm like, oh, I'm not, I get more
yeah,
anxious. So
yeah.
I really need that like Netflix time
Yeah.
or like
Just
just
couch
alone
time. Yeah.
couch time where I can just be at one with my thoughts. I've been trying to, I admit that I'm not the best. And it's funny, as you said, like I guide people through meditation because it's such a great way to, also deal with mental health, and it's so good for us. But I struggle myself with it so much. So my husband and I have been actually trying to implement like a daily meditation, just 5 minutes, nothing too intense, but a 5 minute practice where we're just silent with ourselves and trying to center has been really, really great. And this is really cheesy, but my medicine is cuddling my sons.
Oh,
So that's my
it's
me
not
time.
cheesy at all. It's love in the purest form. So,
I just wanna squeeze my babies.
how old are they?
They're not babies. They're 9 and 6. So, and my baby, my 6-year-old, I like absolutely think of him as a 3-year-old still. So
But I guess, children will always be babies in your heart. They're
yeah.
your babies, like even when they're 30. And oh my gosh, I can't even believe you have a 9-year-old. You look like so young. Like you look too young to have a child that age. So, but
You, that's so sweet. Keep it coming.
no, I was actually going to say, that's actually all the time we have, but thank you so much. Honestly, I really appreciate you taking the time out. As I said, it's not during COVID, everyone's not as motivated as they used to be. So I'm really glad we were able to find each other online as well. So
Yeah.
yeah. But
Thank
I
you
was
so
gonna
much for
say,
having me.
oh no, please don't leave it. It's my pleasure. Those of you that are watching, we're going to put Jayta's details below. Like, even for, I mean, I'm so sorry, I forgot the name of your business, the food.
Fermentanicals. So it's a
Yes,
play on words. It's
yeah,
hashtag fermented botanicals, but
nice.
fermentanicals.
I mean, we'll pop all the details below, so make sure you get in touch if you're interested as well. Thank you so much, Jayta. Hopefully, we can do a part two. But let's do it after COVID. That way, we have a different conversation as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Something to look forward to.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.